And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is yours truly, the one and only Malik D. Shabazz-Sullivan. Welcome to the premiere and opening of the Malik Show. I am so glad that you are able to join us on our first show and our kickoff. We have an amazing show for you tonight. We have special guests, Johnnie, Steele, and the Steele For Real Band and Show. And also on tonight, we want to pay tribute to the one and only Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, 1942 through 2018. Just before we do our tribute for Aretha on tonight, this show was born or opened to me on the day of her passing. And I just felt that it would be an honor to have Aretha's music and presence felt on this show on tonight. So I also have sitting next to me my special guest, Mr. Johnnie Steele, the one and only, is going to help us out with that tribute on tonight. Riri, this is for you. Riri, may you rest in peace. Thank you so much for the music and the privilege and the joy that you have brought to us here on earth. Tonight, I'm here with my special guest, DMV's own, Mr. Johnnie Steele. Mr. Johnnie, welcome to the show. I am so glad to have you on, and this is the kickoff, and am honored to have you as my first guest. How are you doing on this evening?
Doing outstanding, and once again, congratulations to you on your maiden show, and it's an honor for me to be here to kick off your maiden show.
Yes, it is. Well, before we start this interview, Mr. Johnnie, I must say you are very fashionable on tonight. And one thing about it, I just love fashion, and the Malik Show is definitely a big, just a fashionable place for people to come and express themselves. But I will say, Mr. Johnnie, you are in a class all by yourself. Wow. So if you don't mind telling us, the viewers, about your style and how did you hook it up and everything.
Okay, well, my style takes me back to the days of my dad. My dad was I would call him a fashionista. Every day I would watch my dad, he would always be sharp. He would have on ascots. A lot of people don't even wear ascots anymore, and I actually bought them back a few years ago. But every time I saw my dad, he was always dressed in dress shoes, dress pants, seemed like a dress shirt. And he was a golfer, so golfers have a tendency to be sharp individuals. So I would watch my dad up polishing his shoes late at night, and every morning I would see him leave the house, whether he was going to work, didn't matter where he was going. He was always sharp, and I think as I grew up, that always stayed with me, because when I was in high school, I used to get teased, because everybody used to say, John, you come to school like you going to work, man, or you going to a job. And so I always wanted to be sharp, and learning from my dad, I think I took on those dressing qualities. So it took me years to even own a pair of jeans. I own some jeans now.
All right now.
So I have jeans and tennis shoes now, but it took me years to do that. So I love fashion. I've always loved fashion, and it's part of who I am. It makes me happy to go shopping.
Yes.
It's one of my outlets. You know, people have different outlets. When I'm shopping and looking for different styles and different clothes. It's kind of a relief mechanism for me, something I really enjoy.
Okay, okay. Well, here is what one of the things about fashion I want to ask you before we get into it.
Okay.
What do you have to say about today's fashion now as far as the young generation coming up? What do you have to say on that note?
Well, to try to be positive about it, the one thing that kind of bothers me about this generation is that a lot of our young people, they tend to want to look like each other.
Exactly.
You can see a group of 12 guys and they'll pretty much all have on the same
The
thing,
same thing.
the same exact thing. So there's no real identity. And I'm actually trying to instill in my grandsons now that it's okay to stand out. It's okay to wear your hair different.
Yes.
I used to get teased for years about my hairstyle. Now, if you think about it, this hairstyle is real popular now.
Of course.
So
Be yourself.
I would tell the young people, don't be afraid to stand out. You don't have to be around a group of 4 guys and all you look the same. Be the guy that, maybe wears dress shoes when everybody else is wearing tennis shoes to a concert. So I just tell people, this new generation, I would encourage them to stand out more, individualize their style, and I think they'll see that they'll get a little more attention than they would if they looked like everybody else.
Exactly. Well, Mr. Johnnie, I thank you for that, definitely. But let's get right on to the interview.
Okay.
One of the first things I want to ask you on tonight is you are was born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia.
Correct.
You are from one of the most popular families in the DMV. And as we all know that from personal, what I know, your sisters, the Steele sisters, and from who I know individually, we have Angie, we have Jackie, we have Debbie, we have Wanda, we have Sharon, we have Sheila. And, they were known through the singing. Of course, your mother, and, what a mighty woman of God and encouragement and everything. But you pretty much, let's talk just about you on tonight. Now, can you tell our viewers basically who is Johnnie Steele as far as, your childhood and basically, and music? How did that all fit into where you are at right now?
Grew up in Alexandria, Virginia. And in fact, on last night, I went back to Alexandria to a really, really nice venue called the Carlisle Club to celebrate my birthday. And we had a lot of friends, a lot of guys I grew up with out from Alexandria. They came out to the venue and celebrated with me yesterday. As far as growing up in music, it started when I was in kind of like middle school. My dad bought us an organ, and we had an opportunity to learn organ playing by ear. It took me a long time to understand. I never had a chance to read music, but what I did was I used to practice all the time. I would come home from school, and while other kids was out playing, I would be rehearsing. I would be practicing. I would be up. I remember one comment my dad said. I used to be up early in the morning till like 6 o'clock in the morning playing, and he would get up early and go to work. And one day he tapped me on my shoulder and he said, "Son, you're gonna kill yourself. You're actually gonna be a musician, but you don't have to work so hard." But taught myself how to play piano, taught myself how to play bass guitar, and I actually started playing trombone when I was in the 3rd grade in school. I wanted to play saxophone player. For all you saxophone players out there, I actually wanted to be a saxophone player. But when I started in school, they ran out of saxophone. And my music teacher, being a genius, looked at me and said, "Hey, you look like a trombone player." So he handed me a trombone, told me I could take it home that day. And so for the next 7 years, I played trombone. And so that started my music instrumental career. And then as my sisters grew older, and I started playing for church because my mom always had us in church. My aunt was a pastor. She started her own church, didn't have a musician. So I started playing music at her church, learning gospel songs. And then I realized that all of my sisters had a musical talent as far as voicing. So that's how we started the Steele family musical group. A lot of credit goes to my oldest sister, Debbie, who's one of my favorite singers of all time. You know Debbie.
Well, yes. And speaking of Debbie, I pretty much also know that she also still is singing and familiar with the one and only Richard Smallwood.
Absolutely.
So, yes, we are definitely aware of Debbie. But okay, so we know the childhood, the music part. Now, let's talk about family.
Mhm.
And definitely, how did you meet? And I'm sure our viewers are looking at this picture on both of the Titrons. That's what I like to call it. But right here we have Mr. Toyer Blake. We have Miss Debbie Steele, and then we have Mr. Johnnie Steele. Now, I also want to talk about family. Let's talk about how and when you met your wife and the children and grandchildren. Family time with Mr.
Okay.
Johnnie.
Well, I have a great story of how I met my wife. Years ago, if for those of you who go way back with Church of God in Christ, we used to have midnight musicals.
Midnight
You
music.
remember the midnight musicals?
Midnight music.
And Star in Bethlehem really pioneered that. The Star Bethlehem Church of God in Christ, they pioneered that. On this particular night, the Steele family, all my sisters, and for those of you who don't know, I have a brother also. His name is Tyrone. He often gets left out because everybody talks about the sisters, but my brother can actually sing, and he plays drums with us. So that completes the Steele family, 6 sisters and 2 boys. So going back to Star Bethlehem, that particular night there was a special guest on the program, and the tradition was at Star Bethlehem, the special guest didn't really get up until, because the midnight musical really didn't start till midnight.
Exactly.
So the special guest didn't get up sometimes until around 3 o'clock in that morning. So naturally, people are kind of tired, and my family had sang the back then it was the great Danny McCrimmon and Tim Lindsay and
Yes.
Kenny Spears and Winona. I mean, I could name all of the greats.
The DC Maryland side.
There you go.
There we go.
So that particular night, it was a special guest from Salisbury, Maryland. I did not know him. I hadn't heard of him. And by that time, I was kind of tired, so I went in the kitchen. You know, they would have food in the kitchen.
Exactly.
So you could go back and forth, go out, sing, listen, go in the kitchen, grab something, go back and forth. So this particular time, I happened to be in the kitchen with Danny and Tim. We all back there just kind of what they call chilling. So at that particular time, I heard this voice outside the church. And I mean, this voice was killing the church, literally. And you know me, I have a real good ear for voices. So while we were talking, I still had one ear to that door, and I'm going, somebody is out there really just like wrecking Star Bethlehem. So it piqued my curiosity. I got up, and you know, remember Star Bethlehem had them swinging doors. So I swung one side of the doors open, and I looked towards the stage, and there was this young lady. She had on a 2-piece tan suit. The skirt went about to the ankle. She had these beige shoes on. She had a short little afro, little small earrings. And I remember saying, "Good Lord, that's a lot of voice coming from this little lady." Then I remember saying, she kind of cute too. So before I saw her, I heard her. And later on that night, I, introduced myself. I said, we enjoyed you. We're still family. She said, well, I really enjoyed your family too. So then, as tradition would have it, every Monday after the midnight musical, we would all go roller skating.
Okay.
You remember that? We'd all go roller skating. So I invited her to roller skating the next day because I was kind of hoping we could get a little further acquainted. So she came to the roller skating ring, and I walked up to her and I said, hey, I was real popular at the roller skating. That was all we could do was growing up in a Christian family. We could bowl and roller skate. You know that.
Well, bowling, I say, is one of my favorites, but
Yeah.
go on.
Okay, so I invited her to the roller skating ring. I remember walking up to her and I said, listen, I want to skate couples with you. That was a big thing, for a popular guy. And at that time, I was pretty popular to roller skate. So if the popular guy asked a girl for a skate couple, that was kind of a big thing. So I made sure when I saw her, I want to skate couples with her. So unfortunately, the entire night went by, and I forgot to even skate with her.
Okay.
So at the end of the night, she walked past me, gave me that real sassy look, and looked me straight in the eyes. She said, thanks for that couple, almost as if to say, you jive rascal.
Lord,
And pretty much that's what happened. And as she was going out the door, Kenny Spears.
Oh, yeah.
Kenny Spears and I was standing there talking. As she was going out the door, I told Kenny Spears, I said, Kenny, I'm going to marry that girl. Didn't know her from Eve. And I don't even know why I said that. I didn't even really have a girlfriend at the time. And a couple of years later, we were married.
We were married. So how many children and grandchildren to this union?
To this union, I have a son who's Johnnie Steele III and a daughter who's Shekinah Steele. Currently, Shekinah still sings with our group.
Okay.
And my son pretty much does exactly what I do. He plays for 2 churches. He's his own musician. He's a Grammy Award winner writing. I already confessing that for him.
All right now.
Grammy Award winning producer. I'm already confessing that for him. You know how that goes.
Speak it.
Speak it to existence. And my daughter's also a great, fabulous vocalist, writer, and producer herself. And then my daughter has 3 sons. Those are my favorite. I'm going to name them Kobe, the youngest, then Andre, and then Ramon, who's the oldest. And my son has another Johnnie. So there's actually, my dad is Johnnie Steele Sr. I'm Johnnie Steele Jr. My son is Johnnie Steele III. He has a son who we call him J4. So it's 4 generations of Johnnie Steele.
Ain't that something? The generation. Now, let me ask this question. What do you see as far as the son and the grandson? Like, what do you see them doing within the next 10 years? I mean, do you see them possibly following into your footsteps as far as singing and traveling, or do you possibly see them like currently still doing what they're doing now?
That's a great question, because I told my son that I wanted him to exceed everything I did. I wanted him to be a better keyboard player. I wanted him to be a better producer, better singer, better everything than I did. I wanted him to catapult to a whole different level. So in 10 years, I see my son as a worldwide name as far as a producer, musician, songwriter, and even a singer. And he's well on his way to that path now. In fact, he just released 3 different singles with 3 different artists that he's produced. He's a great producer. He has a great ear for music. So I see him 10 years from now. I see him winning a couple of Grammy Awards, not only for producing, but for artistry. And he's playing with some agency bands. So I see him following me, but I also see him exceeding me.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, the next question I want to ask, and also viewers that are watching, the Steele For Real Band and Show is live with us, and also this show is going to have them spotlighted as well. We will have a part 2, a part of this show, and it will be the full interview of the band and show. Now, Mr. Johnnie, the next question I want to ask, and then we're going to transition on.
Okay.
Where did the Steele For Real Band and Show begin? How did the name come about? When and how it was founded, and give us the membership as well.
Will do. It originated out of a group that I started when I was working with Bell Atlantic. There was a group of 4 guys that I put a group together, and we went around doing corporate songs. I come from a pretty much predominantly gospel background. So in the corporate environment, the CEO of the company was coming to one of our events. They asked me to do a song, and I said, I don't really sing by myself. So I knew of about 3 other guys in the company that actually sung. And so I put together this group, and we put together an popular R&B song. And so we performed it for the CEO of the company. It went over so well. He invited us to Philadelphia, to the 51st floor of the Philadelphia Bell Atlantic Towers. He said, do you have any more songs? And I said, yes. But secretly, I had no more songs. And so I went in the shed with my 4 guys, and they wanted us to do like old style Temptations, oldies but goodies. But I wasn't really familiar with those songs. So these other 2 guys, Nathan Heathman and Vaughn Sanders, they would bring me all of these oldie but goodie songs, and it reintroduced me to a whole new world of music that I was not familiar with because I didn't grow up with it. I heard it in the background, but I didn't know it. So a few years later, I had all of these oldies but goodies songs in my repertoire. So I started off as a one-man show. I did a one-man show for 10 years.
Okay.
I started off as Johnnie Steele and Steele For Real.
All right.
So, because one guy came to me one day and said, man, you the real deal. He says, and I remember going home saying, that rhymes, Steele Real's the real deal. I played around with it. And so I came up with Steele, the number 4 Real. And that's how I came up with, and that's my website. www.steeleforreal.com. So that's a little plug for my website. But anyway, a few years later, past 10 years, one of my great friends named Toya Blake, who sings with me at the gospel, at a church called Free Gospel Temple, and we used to sing Deliverance Temple. We sung together. One day he came to see me perform in my one-man show, and he walked up to the stage. He said, hey, man, you mind if I go home and get my congas and just come back and jam with you? I said, sure. And sure enough, he drove it, went back, got his congas, started playing with me. And then I noticed that he was singing with me. And I was saying, man, he knows all my songs. Matter of fact, you probably know him better than I do. So the next time I went out, Toya, I said, hey, you want to join me? And we was doing this place called the Porch in Largo. And then one day he invited my wife up, and she was like, no, that's not really my style. That's not really what I do. So finally everybody kept saying, Debbie, Debbie, Debbie. So Debbie came up and sang. And all you got to do is hear Debbie one time.
Hear one time?
One time, and that's it. So she got up and did a song with us. And that's really how it happened. Then I remember saying to myself, man, I got to stop this one-man band thing and just add Toya and add Debbie. And then we started rehearsing as a group, and I just took Steele for Real and named it Johnnie Steele and Steele for Real Band. And a couple of years ago, my daughter joined in with us, who's another phenomenal vocalist. So that's how the Steele for Real Band was really formed.
Come on here. Well, that is so interesting. Well, I said we are 5 minutes left to our show. But this is my next question, and then you got to sing just a little something. We don't need no music, but we can always hear a voice. My next question, and also you can close us out with a song of your choosing. What will you leave as far as your legacy? And what I mean by that is, if you don't mind me asking, what is your age?
I just turned 60.
Come on here. 60 years old. So my thing is, do you plan on retiring at a certain point, or do you want to continue doing this until you get tired? And also, have you planned on giving it to, I know you're the founder, but do you plan on giving it to someone maybe in the family that will carry the legacy on?
I have no plans of ever retiring.
Okay.
In fact, my wish in life is that my last breath on this earth, I'm performing. I'm doing something either in church or I'm making somebody smile doing music. So
wow.
And the legacy would be that my son and daughter continue in the music industry, and hopefully they may even carry on the name Steele for Real. And then I have nephews and I have nieces, and then they have children. So I hope the name Steele for Real just carries on forever and ever, and it be a symbol of music and of music excellence, because that's what I stand for. I stand for music excellence. Rehearse hard, practice hard, always look good, always sound good, always treat your client good, show up on time, be professionally dressed, do everything professionally. That's the legacy I want to leave behind, being known. My dad told me to leave this legacy behind. Be known as a nice guy.
Be known as a nice guy. I like that. Ain't that something? Ain't that something, ladies and gentlemen? Well, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost coming to a close with our very own Mr. Johnnie Steele. We're 2 minutes into our show. But, Mr. Johnnie, I'm going to let you have the rest. But if you can give us some of that sweet voice, I know you got some pipes down in them lungs. So if you can bless us with something, we're going to carry it on right. And also, those that are watching our next show, on our next episode, part 2, with Mr. Johnnie Steele, and also we're going to have the Steele for Real Band and Show live as well, with their personal experiences and where they are right now. Y'all get the picture. Go ahead, Mr. Johnnie.
I don't consider myself the vocalist, but I'll do something that's one of my favorite songs, and gospel is my background. So I'll just do a little bit of Zion is calling me to a higher place of praise. Stand upon the mountain and magnify his name. Tell all the people and every nation that he reigns. Oh, Zion is calling me to a higher place of praise. Oh, Zion is calling me to a higher place of praise. Oh, Zion is calling me and you to a higher place of praise.
All right. All right. Well, Mr. Johnnie, I thank you so much for being on our show. And thank you, viewers, for watching. But come back on part 2 with Mr. Johnnie Steele. And also, the Steele For Real Band and Show will be, all 3 members will be with us. And we are looking forward to the great interviews and also hearing some of them vocalists from them. Thank you all for watching. This is yours truly, Malik D. Shabazz-Sullivan, your host of The Malik Show. Thank you all.